Before Augustine became one of the most important Christian thinkers of all time, he lived a life that he later called a dark wood of sin. He chased pleasure, ambition, and fame, and he even joined a cult. But there is one line he wrote after his conversion that has echoed through history, showing us exactly why he lived the way he did, and why he spent the rest of his life fighting for truth. Stick around until the end of the video, and I will share that line with you, because it might just explain why we, in the 21st century, still wrestle with the same questions today.
Господи, помилуй, Господи, помилуй.
Augustine was born in 354 AD in Thagaste, a small town in North Africa, part of the late Roman Empire. His father, Patricius, was a pagan, and his mother, Monica, was a devout Christian. From childhood, Augustine was caught between these two very distinct worlds, the world of paganism and the world of Christianity, the faith of his mother and the ambition of his father. Now, Augustine was brilliant. By the time he was a teenager, he had already been known for his sharp mind and his love for learning. His parents would invest heavily in his education because they hoped that he would become a great orator and possibly bring prestige to the family. But brilliance comes with restlessness. So in the years of his life growing up, as a young man, Augustine moved to Carthage in modern-day Tunisia to study rhetoric. And Carthage was a bustling, cosmopolitan city. It was full of parties, theatres, but of course, with such lavish lifestyles came temptation, and Augustine dove right in. Later in his life, he would admit that he had prayed the words, "Give me chastity and self-control," but not yet. He entered into a long-term relationship with a woman whose name that we don't actually know, but whom he deeply loved. And together, they would have a son who was named Adeodatus, and his name means gift of God. But Augustine wasn't just seeking pleasure, he was searching for truth. So, part of his search for truth is when he would join a religious movement that was known as Manichaeism. It was a kind of dualistic faith that explained the world as a struggle between light and darkness. For 9 years, he was a devoted follower, but gradually he grew disillusioned. The answers that he received simply felt too shallow and too simplistic. So he moved to Rome, and then later Milan, chasing a career as a teacher of rhetoric, but he still felt empty. And this is where, on his journey, Augustine encountered Ambrose, the bishop of Milan. He was a brilliant preacher who combined faith with intellectual depth. Now, initially, Augustine went to hear Ambrose just to admire his speaking skills. But slowly but surely, the scriptures Ambrose preached began to sink into his developing mind. Obviously, Augustine's conversion wasn't instant. He wrestled for years, literal years, with his desires, his doubts, and, of course, his pride. He wanted truth, of course, but he didn't want to give up control. So one day, overwhelmed by inner conflict, Augustine retreated to a garden and wept, not sure of exactly where to continue on with his life. But there, he heard a child's voice chanting, "Take and read." So he opened the Bible and he read Romans 13. And in that moment, Augustine said his heart was flooded with light and the struggle was over. So, eventually he would come around, and Augustine did become baptized in the year 387 AD by Ambrose himself. But soon after, tragedy struck. His beloved son Adeodatus died, and this left Augustine absolutely heartbroken. But he also was left more determined than ever to dedicate his life to God. So he would return to North Africa from Milan. He sold his family property and he founded a monastic community. But God had other plans. The church in Hippo then pressed him into service as a priest and later as a bishop. As bishop, Augustine preached constantly, sometimes every day. He cared for the poor, he defended the faith, and he guided his people through very difficult and tough times, including invasions and political chaos in the collapse of the Roman Empire. Now, he would also write a lot of stuff. One of his works is known as Confessions, and Confessions is his spiritual autobiography. And this would be one of the first of its kind in history. Another work of his was dubbed The City of God, and this was a monumental work written after the sacking of the Roman Empire, and it explains how God's kingdom endures even when earthly empires would fall. And another one of his works is On the Trinity, on Free Will, and these were hundreds of sermons and letters, and these would shape theology for centuries to come. Now we come back to the line that I teased at the start, the one that unlocks Augustine's whole story. And it's what I just said just now in Confessions. So, in the very first page of Confessions, Augustine writes, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you." This wasn't just simple poetry. It was Augustine's entire life in one sentence. Augustine spent years running away from God, turning his back on God, chasing the earthly pleasures, power, philosophy, only to discover that nothing would satisfy him except the Lord himself. That is why he would end up fighting extremely hard against heresies like Pelagianism, which denied the need for God's grace. Augustine knew from his own experience that salvation was not something that we could achieve on our own. It had to come from God. So, in his final days, Augustine lived to see the Vandals, a Germanic tribe, go all the way across the Roman Empire and invade North Africa, invade Carthage, modern-day Algeria, modern-day Morocco, and as they approached the city of Hippo, he lay dying. According to tradition, Augustine asked that the penitential psalms be written on the walls of his room so that he could see them as he prayed. Augustine of Hippo would then die in the year 430 AD as the city was under siege from the Vandals, but he died with a faith that was completely unshaken. Augustine's thought would shape the entire Middle Ages. His ideas about grace, about free will, original sin, and the nature of the church became foundational in theology later to come. And his writings still speak today because he was honest about his doubts, his sins, and his long, hard journey towards God. Now, Augustine shows us that faith is not just about believing certain ideas. It's about a restless heart finding its true home. And perhaps that is exactly why his story resonates so deeply, because in some way we are all looking for that rest. And I know that if I was to try and relate Augustine to the modern day off the top of my head, that, well, everyone struggles with combating the two different worlds, the earthly world of pleasures and power and pride and sin, and the heavenly realm. And when Augustine prays, "Give me chastity and self-control, but don't give it to me yet," this resonates with, I'm going to just say, a lot of the attitudes that come in the modern world. Everyone wants to be able to claim that they live a really holy and devout life. Heck, I do as well. But a lot of people are just like Augustine when they ask, "Not yet. Don't give me this life just yet." And I think a real path towards proper self-improvement and self-development will be to do the hard things in your life now. Don't wait for this yet that you ask to come in your prayers, because that yet might never come if you don't take action now. And that is why Augustine of Hippo, his life definitely resonates in us today. So that's Augustine of Hippo, the restless seeker who became the voice of Western Christianity. Oh, and the next father we're diving into, well, it's going to be a bit of a special episode, but I will dive into Saint John of Rila. So, thank you all very much for listening to my video. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and smash that bell, as every YouTuber would say. If you don't like the video, you can dislike it, and if you want to leave any sort of criticisms or compliments, that is free in the comment section below. Thank you all very much, and God bless.